Cassie Ventura, the star witness in the government's case against Sean Diddy Combs.
Cassie's court testimony might be the most explosive moment in Diddy's unraveling court case.
Diddy Combs is at the center of one of the most disturbing trials in celebrity history.
But the even more sensational twist is what she revealed in that courtroom now goes beyond Diddy's fate alone. It could destroy careers and reputations. She explained how their relationship started and gradually progressed to something more sinister. But the most shocking part truly started when she got to what happened at Diddy's parties. What really goes on behind closed doors at these gatherings? Join us as we reveal the shocking details. Cassie's testimony. For years, people speculated about the dark side of Diddy's empire. So it was hardly surprising that the courtroom was packed full the day that Cassie would give her testimony. While people were interested in hearing the details of her relationship with Diddy, there was something even more sensational they were interested in knowing about. There have been hints that Cassie would talk about what really happens at Diddy's exclusive events. Over the years, there have been many rumors, but nothing has ever really been verified. So this was a big deal. For the first time, people would know what goes on behind closed doors, coming from an eyewitness. Despite the speculations bloggers have proposed over time, no one could have anticipated the shocking details Cassie was about to reveal. It was beyond anyone's imagination. Since this court case involving Diddy began, much speculation has been over whether justice would prevail. There is this widely accepted belief that celebrities and influential people don't get as much punishment as others for crimes committed. People wondered if Diddy's case would be one such case. But after Cassie's explosive testimony, it looks like Nemesis was finally catching up to Diddy. People started paying attention to her when she entered the witness box and handed a list to the prosecuting lawyer. Now, the lawyer had hoped that Cassie's testimony would be the unrefuted proof for the juror to sentence Diddy to jail. But one could see from the look on his face, as he read the scrap of paper Cassie handed him, that even he hadn't seen this coming. Everyone in the courtroom watched the exchange with rapid interest. There was only one question on their minds. What was on that piece of paper? The prosecuting lawyer handed the paper to the evidence clerk to be turned in as a last-minute piece of evidence. It contained a list of names backed with irrefutable evidence. There were sworn statements backed up in the cloud, surveillance footage, and audio recordings. It wasn't just damning, it was going to overthrow everything. This was not just evidence against random people. There were celebrities, big brand executives, and prominent business moguls. Some of them have millions of fans worldwide. Cassie fearlessly named them all and showed exactly how they were involved. The court hearing today was not like any other. Usually the judge would need to call for order and silence, but this is not the case today. Everyone was dead silent as they paid rapt attention to the screen as Cassie's legal team connected a hard drive they called Exhibit A. The jury leaned in. So did the rest of the audience in the courtroom. A flat screen was wheeled to the front, facing the courtroom. With a nod from the judge, the lead prosecutor clicked play, and the video began. It was a bit blurry. It had been pulled from a private residence but was unmistakably authentic. There was a voice heard off camera. It was Diddy's voice. A date stamp blinked at the screen's top right corner. There were flashing lights and low, pulsing music in the background. One could hear some muted chatter and ice clinking in glasses. It was clearly a party. Everything sounded loud and chaotic. The room in the video was sleek and modern, drenched in ambient red and violet lighting. A camera, likely mounted in a ceiling corner, captured a wide view of people mingling around marble countertops and velvet couches. The camera wasn't handheld, so it offered a fixed perspective. Faces came in and out of frame. Some are familiar, while others are barely visible. Diddy's voice came on again. Although his face never appeared in the video, his voice carried almost all through the recording. This was the point where something totally unexpected happened. Diddy casually called out to Kanye West in the video playing. Although Kanye West's face wasn't showing, it sounded like he was close by. He mentioned other names that had been redacted by the court. Even more stunning was the familiar way he was joking with these people. He was mentioning their names. He told one person that the girls were in the lower lounge and that no cameras were allowed there. It didn't seem like this was the first time these people were attending this gathering. In fact, they sound like regulars. Gasps spread through the courtroom as more names were mentioned, some blurred in the video, and some briefly turned into frames. Many of them were redacted by the court. One was a Grammy-winning rapper. Another was a supermodel in a sequined dress seen glancing nervously at the camera before stepping out of frame. There was an Oscar-nominated actor dancing, half obscured by another guest's shoulder. Time and again, Diddy's voice identified guests who might have otherwise remained anonymous. Each name dropped in casual conversation carried legal and cultural weight. The lawyers on both teams scribbled furiously, and the jury did. Members of the public covered their mouths. One juror looked visibly disturbed. At one point, Diddy's voice instructed someone to ensure the pills don't mix this time, following it with a joke that made several guests laugh. Their faces, clearly visible, were frozen on screen as the prosecutor paused the video. He then said something even more sensational. The prosecutor announced that this video exhibit was just one of several recordings backed up to a private cloud server containing similar recordings of these events hosted by Diddy. Unfortunately, he said it won't be made available to the public, especially not during the court proceedings.
The Diddy trial, after a little bit of a delay this morning, they did get the jury seated.
It would only be accessed with a warrant. The courtroom was silent. There was no denying this glaring evidence or denying that this was more than a party. But that's not all. Just as the courtroom was recovering from the shock of the video evidence, the prosecutor called for the next set of evil to be presented. The court bailiff wheeled in the evidence binder. It was clear this wasn't just any collection of documents. It was labeled Exhibit B. It was a big binder of what looked like hundreds of pages. Some were printed screenshots, others handwritten notes, and a handful marked with legal tabs and official seals. The prosecutor requested the surveillance footage be pulled from encrypted cloud backups. When this was done, the image was a still frame of a hallway outside a penthouse suite. In the corner, a timestamp blinked, matching the night of one of the alleged parties. The video played without sound. Two figures were in the picture. One was clearly Diddy. The posture was undeniably his, and he had his signature diamond chain. The other was a global pop star. Even though his head was bent low and his hoodie was up, he was unmistakable. However, the court also redacted his name. Then came the Wi-Fi ping data and hotel keycard logs. The prosecutor called forensic experts to the stand to explain how the hotel's network had logged the devices of over a dozen known celebrities connecting to a private router that night. This explains how they could pull off such atrocious parties with privacy. Each MAC address was tied to a name. Many of these names have already been turned over to the police to have them verified through subpoenas and expert testimony. With these keycard access logs, the prosecutors could place people in specific rooms at specific times. One clip stood out. In one of the hotel rooms, faintly caught on a hallway cam peeking through an ajar door, Diddy entered with a woman wearing a metallic dress. A few frames later, yet another globally recognized pop icon followed. The door shut and the footage ended. Though short and without audio, the implication sent a ripple through the court. There was only one question in everyone's mind. What was she doing at such a gathering? There was yet another video recorded. Diddy's voice could be heard giving instructions like only VIPs are allowed in the lower lounge. Many people in the audience caught on that word again. The words lower lounge was repeated multiple times in the footage as he directed people to a separate area of the venue. The prosecutor later showed floor plans of the event space, which confirmed a second hidden lower-level room accessible only through a service stairwell. That's not all. Then came the backup list. This was perhaps the most damning of all. Surprisingly, it wasn't even digital. It was a handwritten log, scanned and stored by Cassie's legal team months earlier. The list wasn't just names. It included aliases, wardrobe instructions, and notes that read like scene directions. Even more shocking was that the list had been verified by Cassie's therapist, who testified that these entries were consistent with journal entries Cassie had brought to sessions over the years. They had been time-stamped, discussed in detail, and entered into therapeutic records long before the lawsuit. By the time the audience was stunned to silence by the series of revelations the prosecuting team had provided, most of it with Cassie's help. There was one thing that became obvious as the exhibits were displayed in the court. Diddy wasn't running these parties alone. The system behind Diddy's scandal. This wasn't just a series of wild parties. It was a system. One close look at how the parties were organized in the exhibits already suggests it. To further prove it, several witnesses that were sworn under oath described it not as nightlife, but as ritual. They claim everything had a specific function. From the music to the lighting, even the drinks. Prosecutors framed it as a blackmail pipeline, that it is a cover-up for something even more sinister. And this theory adds up. There are several testimonies from multiple attendees who claimed their actions were monitored, recorded, and sometimes used against them. One former guest said she received a video file of herself weeks after an event, footage she never knew existed. A threatening message followed the video telling her to stay quiet or face the repercussions. The rooms themselves were part of the system. They have the spa room that has cameras embedded in mirrored panels, according to two technicians who later filed anonymous affidavits. There was also the champagne lounge that had blinds that closed automatically when guests entered. And then there was the vault. This room was mentioned in several of the exhibits presented. The vault is windowless, soundproof, and accessible only with a key code. One of the witnesses that took the stand described it as a place where time stopped and phones disappeared. There's more. There was surveillance everywhere, but no one knew exactly where. There has to be, given the threatening recordings the guests sometimes receive afterwards. One guest asked aloud at the party, "Where are the cameras?" She never got an answer, but days later received a message with a still frame from the event. It came from an encrypted account. She never returned. The psychological and emotional toll was evident in every statement read out in court. There were several women who described waking up unsure how they got back to their hotel rooms. And behind this web of manipulation were the non-disclosure agreement Diddy made them sign before they're invited to the events. These non-disclosure agreements banned recollection, even in therapy. Legal experts testified that some clauses explicitly forbade recounting events under psychiatric care. Violating them came with $1 million penalties per breach. This was a sum that effectively silenced most signers, especially those whose careers or reputations hung in the balance. All of them had to keep their silence until Cassie stepped forward. In a way, she empowered them to liberate themselves too. Before Cassie was finally allowed to leave the witness stand, she was asked one final question.
The prosecution's star witness, Cassie Ventura, is back on the stand under cross-examination.
The prosecutor asked if she was the only one who was a victim of Diddy's perverse events. She looked straight ahead and said no, she was one of many. Then she said something that shook the court. She said, "Some didn't survive, and some vanished." Gasps filled the room. Even seasoned court reporters looked stunned. This was no longer a case about celebrity misconduct. It was about systemic abuse, criminal organization, and alleged victims who never got a chance to testify. As court adjourned for the day, Cassie walked out flanked by federal protection. She shielded eyes hidden behind dark glasses. Onlookers, press, and protesters cleared a path for her, as if they understood the magnitude of what had just been said. But the worst was yet to come. As the exhibits kept rolling out, what began as a bombshell civil suit rapidly turned into a full-blown criminal case. The courtroom, once murmuring with rumors and whispers, now buzzed with the language of federal crime. Racketeering charges were formally introduced, connecting the dots between the parties, the blackmail, the surveillance, and a larger, calculated system designed for exploitation. This wasn't just a scandal, it was a criminal enterprise. The moment the lead prosecutor uttered the word racketeering, observers noted a visible shift in the defendant. One witness said Diddy's face drained white, his expression frozen. His legal team exchanged hushed words, suddenly scrambling through folders of paperwork as if they hadn't expected this escalation. By the end of that day, the internet had already erupted. Hashtags like Diddy downfall and Cassie was right were trending globally. One can help but wonder how Diddy arrived at this low point in his life. True, his childhood had its ups and downs, but he made it to stardom despite it. In fact, some details of his early life has surprised many people. Diddy's childhood. Sean John Combs, professionally known as Diddy, was born on November 4, 1969, in Harlem, New York City, and raised in Mount Vernon, a suburban enclave just north of the Bronx. His early life was shaped by both tragedy and resilience. His father, Melvin Combs, was associated with convicted drug dealer Frank Lucas and was murdered when Sean was just 2 years old. This left his mother, Janice Combs, to raise him and his sister. Janice, who was an upcoming model and teaching assistant, worked hard to provide a stable home life. Diddy attended Mount St. Michael Academy, a Catholic school in the Bronx, and later enrolled at Howard University in Washington, D.C., where he studied business but eventually dropped out to pursue music full-time. Despite not finishing his degree at the time, he would later be awarded an honorary doctorate by Howard and delivered the 2014 commencement speech. Diddy's entry into the music industry began with an internship at Uptown Records, where he quickly climbed the ranks due to his relentless work ethic and ear for talent. He was instrumental in developing the careers of artists like Mary J. Blige and Joe Desi. Then something went wrong. In 1993, he was fired from Uptown. However, after being fired, he launched Bad Boy Records. There, he would shape the sound of 90s hip-hop and R&B. Diddy's production style was characterized by glossy beats, heavy sampling from 80s hits, and a mix of commercial appeal with street credibility. He released his own debut album, No Way Out, in 1997 under the name Puff Daddy, featuring hits like I'll Be Missing You, a tribute to Biggie after his death. The album won a Grammy and went platinum 7 times. Beyond music, Diddy evolved into a multimedia mogul. He expanded into fashion, launching Sean John in 1998, a clothing line that won a CFDA award and made millions. He ventured into television and film, both as an actor and producer, and later acquired Revolt TV, a music-oriented digital cable television network. His business empire also includes investments in Ciroc Vodka, Aqua Hydrate, De Leon Tequila, and other lifestyle brands. Throughout the 2000s and 2010s, Diddy remained one of the wealthiest and most influential figures in entertainment, consistently appearing on Forbes' lists of top-earning musicians and entrepreneurs. Known for reinventing himself, he changed monikers multiple times: Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, Diddy, and even briefly, Love. Diddy has also been a major figure in philanthropy and activism, funding educational initiatives like the Capital Preparatory Charter Schools in Harlem and Connecticut. Despite controversies, business disputes, and personal relationships, his cultural impact and legacy in hip-hop, fashion, and black entrepreneurship have remained prominent. Through decades of reinvention, Sean Combs carved a unique lane that blended music, marketing, and moguls, making him a household name across generations. This court case is making him a household name all over again, but not in a positive light. The internet lit up within minutes of Casie's testimony hitting the press. However, the most significant development is yet to come. Authorities confirmed that 6 unreleased videos, retrieved from cloud backups, encrypted drives, and one anonymous source, are currently under forensic review. These videos are said to be clearer, longer, and more damning than anything seen so far. Though their contents have not been released,
Diddy's ex, Casie Ventura, who is 9 months pregnant, was on the stand for the 2nd day in a row.
insiders suggest they implicate several unnamed but globally recognized figures. The court has placed a protective seal on them pending deeper investigation, but whispers from the legal community hint that their release could trigger a second wave of indictments. One thing is clear in the aftermath of the courtroom chaos. This is no longer just a scandal. It's a systemic reckoning. What do you think of Cassie's testimony on the witness stand? We would love you to share your opinion in the comments section. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.